Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having yourselves a wonderful night and a great start to your weekend. Got you a video tonight really discussing all the severe weather potential we have upcoming over the next several days, really for the foreseeable future. It's just how high end is it going to be? We got a lot to figure out, especially as we get past this weekend into really next work week. But we're going to have everything sectioned out pretty well in this video like we always do. The first thing we'll discuss is the ongoing severe weather right now and how it's going to just last into the overnight hours of tonight. Not talking about tomorrow night or any other night. I'm talking about tonight all the way into the wee hours of the morning, all the way to just about daybreak tomorrow morning for our Saturday. So we'll talk about that right at the beginning, and then we'll have a separate timestamp up for Saturday's severe weather risk across the southeast and all the states included in that. And then another system sets up, and this is what's going to drive Sunday's severe weather threat basically onward into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So everything will be sectioned out, like I said, and we'll break it all down for you folks. But I do think next week is going to be pretty active. So we're going to discuss everything and break it down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you see a cat in the background, there's a cat in here right now, Stormy, one of my older cats. She isn't really that old. She's a few years old, but the cat we've had the longest is chilling right over here to my left, and she could get up at any time and move around, try to hop in my lap, stare at me and meow at me. So if you see that, well, you know, for the regulars that tune in, sometimes you know that happens. But if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Didn't have a chance to answer the comments for this morning's video, but I'll try to get to those sometime throughout the weekend. But you guys know how the weekends get around here, around the West household. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we do got moisture, as you can tell, in the yellows and greens and reds cruising across areas of southern Alabama, areas of Georgia, even some scattered downpours into the Carolinas, the southern Alps region. So this is what's going on right now. We have a pretty intense line of storms draping across a warm front down here. And we're going to discuss this in more detail here in a second. But just a broad look at the radar here. If you live, in southern Alabama, you're already dealing with it right now. But northern Florida, southern Georgia, all the way into the low country of South Carolina, all this energy is going to continue to kind of get closer and closer. And we got to watch the warm front boundary in the South Georgia. How far does it rise north? I think it will. And then we got to watch energy that could get going down here, over here in Louisiana, southern Mississippi, as another cluster of storms gets going overnight tonight. So I think it's going to be a very active night. There's a tornado warning here in this purple color right here. And this is a severe thunderstorm warning in this red boxed region here. So there's some strong couplets in the region, meaning that the radar is indicating rotation. Wouldn't be surprised if there's actually been some tornadoes in the ground over the last 2 hours. But this is what's going on right now. We're going to take a better look at this radar here in a second. So there's still a slight risk. No enhanced risk right now. But guys, I wouldn't be surprised one bit they upgrade this to an enhanced risk for the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning. As of now, we just have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Let me try to upgrade this, because I would hate for this to change right in the middle of doing this video, and then as soon as it uploads, all of a sudden there's a 10% risk. But there's a 5% risk, and this isn't for just this evening. This is for the overnight hours too. In the Brown area, southern Georgia, southern Alabama, areas of southern Mississippi, all the way down to Pensacola, Florida, Mobile, Alabama, and then the northern counties of North Florida and the Panhandle of Florida. 5% risk of a tornado, 2% risk all the way up here into the low country of South Carolina. So there certainly is a risk tonight. And then we, run that risk of damaging winds in the yellow. That's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail outlook, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So let's look at this really quick. Well, let's keep this here really quick. And now I want to show you a different look at the radar right now. So a tornado warned storm right here. And what I want you to notice, a lot of convection up here in this area, a lot of just scattered shower and storm activity. But down here, see if we can zoom in. Down here is a bit of a clearing. There's a very ripe air mass for severe weather. I wouldn't say necessarily high-end atmosphere for tornadoes, but is certainly an atmosphere that supports isolated tornadoes. And that's why you got this tornado warning right here, kind of dipping now into the actual, it's right along the Alabama Georgia line right now. But this is getting really close to Alabama-Florida line. This is getting really close to the Georgia line. Heck, maybe it already is. No, this is definitely still in Alabama. So Alabama-Florida line right here, starting to dip into the Panhandle, Florida. There's rotation all along this line, guys. You know, you look at the velocity scan here. Okay, you see the changing of colors right here. I don't talk a lot on this on my channel because I don't go live, but this is basically a vortice. This is indicating rotation per radar. So you see the reds up against the greenish colors. This indicates rotation with these storms. And you can see some embedded pockets right in here too, and in here. So there's rotation all along this line showing up. And we certainly look for that CC drop correlation coefficient that tells us if debris is getting lofted in the atmosphere. But basically there is some sort of boundary. I wouldn't say some sort, there is a warm front boundary kind of draped across this region right in here. And you obviously can't see that line, so we're going to have to do it again. There is a warm front boundary sort of right into here, and these storms are kind of riding this boundary. And along this boundary, warm front boundary, there's a changing of directions with winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So this actually helps to kind of aid in a spin in the atmosphere embedded in this line of storms. So that's why these storms are rotating deep down here in Alabama and eventually into Georgia into the overnight hours, and then in the Panhandle of Florida. I hope that makes sense. Got kind of sloppy there, but the HRRR model is not doing good at all, in my opinion. They have this convection too far north. Of course, there is showers and storms right now, and a little bit further north in Alabama and Georgia, but they don't have this cluster of storms down here along the the Florida-Alabama line. So it's not doing the best, but I do think it has the right idea that in general, we're going to have some nasty storms that drift into Georgia later this evening in South Georgia. Like, here's this cluster of storms. If you live in South Georgia, definitely have a way to get alerts. This will eventually kind of drift to the Georgia coastline closer to midnight. But this could look totally different in this. Like I said, HRRR model not handling this very well as of right now. But check out what happens as we get to the wee hours in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, clusters of storms forming again. And even though this isn't a favorable time period of the day or night, because, I mean, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't have a lot of daytime heating, I mean, there's still going to be ongoing severe weather, I think, in South Georgia. There's a chance that I might get up and chase really early in the morning, might drive down here. We'll see what happens, but don't know if I'm going to end up chasing tomorrow or not. But there's definitely a lot of convection and shower and storm activity as we're getting to about 7 a.m. here in eastern, southeastern Georgia, getting into the low country of South Carolina too. Got a lot of active weather out here for sure. And you just got to watch all these storms. I mean, we're starting to get into tomorrow, which we'll discuss here in a second. But, you know, you look at the updraft velocity swath from, you know, all this convection into the overnight hours. And here it is, you know, we take it all the way to about midnight. You see that rotation indicated here in South Georgia, areas of Florida. It's indicating stronger updrafts, with these storms are going to drift through South Georgia tonight, indicating rotation with some of these storms. And I do think we're going to get a few tornado warnings at minimum in South Georgia into the overnight hours, and basically over the next several hours down here. And this takes us all the way into tomorrow morning. And then we have another area to watch out for moving out of southern Alabama eventually that might move into Georgia again tomorrow. So that's the severe weather threat. Please continue to be weather aware with this. But let's go on and go into our Saturday. We're pretty much going to zoom right back into kind of the same similar regions. There's a slight risk from the Panhandle of Florida and northern areas of Florida, including Jacksonville, splits Georgia in half. Same thing with South Carolina, including like Macon up to Columbia, Charleston, Savannah, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, and just kind of halfway up the coastline of North Carolina, including southeastern sections of North Carolina. And it does still include southeastern sections of Alabama too. So what is this driven off of? Well, there is a 5% risk of a tornado. I think that this will get upgraded to I think I said this right. There's a 2% risk of a tornado in the green. I think this will get upgraded to a 5% risk somewhere. And I'm betting it's going to be for South Georgia and areas of Florida, maybe all the way up to the low country of South Carolina. Tomorrow's severe weather threat across the southeast is very complex. It's a tricky one to figure out. You're going to have convection everywhere in the morning that's really going to jam up the atmosphere, and it's just going to be hard to figure it out. It really is. 2% risk of a tornado. Getting my numbers all mixed up. Guys, I almost didn't make a video for you guys because it took me like 10 tries to start this video. I just kept tripping my words up, but I muscled through it. So if I'm messing up a couple times. Well, we'll get through it together. We'll hold our hand and get through it together here. But in the yellow area, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in this area right here. This is really what's driving that slight risk. As far as the hail threat with this, let's go back to day 2 here. As far as the hail threat with this, just a 5% risk of hail. Not a huge threat tomorrow with this. There is a severe threat up here in the upper Midwest to Great Lakes region. I don't think this will be a big deal, but you guys could get some storms up here in Wisconsin, UP, and Michigan. Not going to discuss that much in this video, except really here. But we'll talk about that when we wake up tomorrow morning. But we're kind of going back to the same area, right? We're starting at where we left off. So tomorrow morning, there's going to be probably storms all in South Georgia, the low country of South Carolina. These could be a little bit further north than what they're showing, a little bit further south than what they're showing. But all in all, this is around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, 7 or 8 a.m. And we're going to keep on rolling this. We'll take it to about mid-morning. Shows a lot of activity along the South Carolina coastline. A lot of storms down here in southeast Georgia. There will most likely be a line of storms surging across the panhandle of Florida into the Big Bend regions, just northern Florida. We'll take it to about 1 p.m. Look at this embedded kind of storm activity, shower and heavy rain activity here. And then here in North Florida, we have a lot of storms ongoing. Just a lot going on just about everywhere here. But you keep this going and you're starting to get to about 4 p.m. You're seeing these storms firing up here in North Georgia, northern Alabama. And the thing is here, is you see all this action kind of tomorrow morning, early in the afternoon. This could sort of stabilize the atmosphere. It just depends on how far north this gets. If this kind of area of kind of stratospheric rain, if you will, it gets too far north, it's going to stabilize the atmosphere. If this kind of stays further to the south, then I think that more areas of South Carolina, North Georgia could become a little bit more unstable for more thunderstorm development tomorrow. But we start to get into 4, 5 o'clock. There's a bit of a clearing here. Is the atmosphere going to unstable in central Georgia, become unstable in central Georgia, South Carolina? That's a big question here. But I've had actually a person or two asking, hey Mitch, how is the weather going to be here in the Carolinas Saturday? Because it seems like it's been a few weeks since we've had a really warm weekend. We've had some humid weekends, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. But I bought a pool at Walmart for just a little smaller pool for my girls a few weeks back, and I filled it up one time back in late April, and I haven't filled it up since because we just had some storms on the weekend. Hasn't gotten really hot. I don't even remember the last time I hit 90 degrees here in Columbia. So, I think this weekend's going to be kind of the same. It's not going to get super hot. It's going to stay humid, and just a chance of thunderstorms all weekend. And, we start to get deeper kind of into our Saturday night. You could have some shower and storm activity, but what I was saying was, people asking about the forecast. Tomorrow's forecast is a crapshoot. I mean, it really is. It's a tough one in Georgia, the Carolinas. It is going to be a tough forecast to figure out. It could end up being a nice day. It could end up being just cloudy and very humid and just showers and storms. It really could be. And when we take it all the way into Sunday morning, I think it'll be a lot more quieter in this area. But, you look at the updraft velocity swath, between now and basically Sunday morning, there's little pockets of rotation in some of these storms, but all in all, I don't think it'll be a super big deal by any means. But we'll certainly watch this for sure. We go a little bit up the road into the Carolinas, just covering more Virginia, Carolinas, and the Southern Alps region. Same thing. We're going to start off with a lot of shower, maybe some thunder shower activity all the way up into Virginia, Delmarva region. Could get a little bit of a clearing. We get to about 2 p.m. You see these storms trying to develop up here in the Triangle, Triad, the Piedmont of North Carolina. See these storms in eastern Tennessee. It's around 1 to 2 p.m. Northern Georgia, pockets of downpours into Virginia. And it shows storms really firing up on both sides of the mountains here in Tennessee and North Carolina. Shows some hefty activity. We're probably going to get some strong to severe storms with these on both sides of the mountains. So, 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, evening, if you live in the mountains on either side down to North Georgia, it's probably going to be a pretty stormy afternoon. Models are really zoomed into the idea of this, and I think that they're very confident on this because there's a solid chance the atmosphere is not going to be able to become stable, because I don't think all this shower and storm activity in the morning hours tomorrow morning is really going to reach this far north. So, if the sun comes out up in these areas, ends up being a pretty nice day. just know that you're probably going to get some storms that develop later on in the afternoon. Shower and storm activity in northern North Carolina, northeast North Carolina, and then it really could just be a messy evening throughout North Carolina and South Carolina tomorrow, where just a pretty large complex of storms could sweep across the Carolinas. We'll just have to watch that. Could dump a lot of rain too. And, can't rule out a tornado up here either, but I just don't think the ingredients are really going to support tornadoes up a little bit further north into the Carolinas. So getting into Sunday now, let's just take a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook. Slight risk up for areas of Kansas and Nebraska. Level 2 out of 5 means pretty much, hey, there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location. I think Sunday's more of a conditional threat, but we'll certainly watch. Okay, we get into day 4, which is our Monday. Kind of the same areas, right? Pretty much a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risks at day 4 for our Monday for areas of southwestern Iowa, northwestern Missouri, southeastern Nebraska, and just pretty much a good chunk of Kansas here. I mean, includes Omaha, Lincoln, down to Wichita, pretty much includes Dodge City, Kansas City. So, this is driven off a different system. Remember, starting Sunday, driven off a totally different system, which we're about to break down. And then we got Tuesday, guys. And I think we're going to get probably severe weather for Wednesday too, but let's talk about Tuesday. All right, huge 15% risk area stretching from, about halfway up Lake Michigan, including Green Bay, all the way down to just about Oklahoma City, including Tulsa, Fayetteville, Arkansas, including Springfield, Kansas City, over to Wichita pretty much, St. Louis, Peoria, Springfield, Illinois, Des Moines, Chicago, Milwaukee. So this is a huge area. My opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions too, whether it's meteorologists, weather enthusiasts, whatever it is, I think that Tuesday is going to be the big day. And I think the same way, and I'm going to show you why. But I could see them in a day or two making an enhanced risk at day 3 or day 4. I don't think they'll put an enhanced risk on this for tomorrow. They could, but I think by the time we get into Sunday, this will be what I think day 3. I think we'll have an enhanced risk. That's my call. For Sunday, we'll have an enhanced risk for Tuesday. That's just my opinion, but we'll watch this. So if you're viewing from the Midwest, I think the Tuesday could be a significant severe weather day. But let's talk about what's driving this. And yes, we're back to the oranges and the blues here. Remember, blues you see on your screen, this is the 500 millibar chart. Indicates lower pressure and higher pressure, ridging and troughing. Okay, troughing's in the blue, ridging's in the orange or reddish colors on your screen, warmer colors, things like that. Lower pressure in the blue indicates more unsettled weather, a trough of low pressure, a lower pressure, which, if you kind of date it back to middle school and elementary school, I feel like that was when we learned about low pressure and high pressure, but just think of the blue as that because that's exactly what it is. And then, like I said, the orange, ridge of high pressure, more stable conditions, just typically associated with warmer than average temperatures. Okay, so we start this Sunday afternoon. This is a little bit harder of a setup to explain than your average setup. It gets a lot easier as we get into Monday and especially Tuesday. For Sunday, it's tough. Okay, so remember, and let's make this black. Remember, the severe weather potential for Sunday is for... Okay, we're good. It's for right into here, I believe. Severe weather potential. Now, it could be larger than this also. We could have it like around this area too, but for now, we just know for day 4, slight risk right in here. So you notice, remember when we talk about this, when we have this area in blue, this brings unsettled weather. Okay, this brings, energy along the base of what we call this, which is a trough of low pressure. We call this an upper trough. This is digging down into the northern Rockies, and then we have little impulses of energy, little surface lows, surface features that kind of ride sort of the base of this trough that kind of, basically if you see white areas in between this and this check mark right here, the ridge and the trough, that's typically where all your energy is flying through. That's kind of like the avenue it's taking, because the ridge is basically pulling this way and the trough is pulling it that way. So that's what's going on, right? So you're thinking, well, I know I am. So you're thinking, well, this circled area is pretty far away from this, and I would agree. One thing you don't see here really is there's energy right into here too, kind of a weak short wave. And actually, this week's shortwave is what's going to drive a conditional severe weather threat, a little mini dry line right into the circled area. There's already going to be enough moist air kind of making its way into this region. This is going to provide a plenty of storm energy in the atmosphere, higher in Cape levels. But one would argue that this really isn't driving Sunday's severe weather threat, but it is all kind of coming together as one. So that's Sunday. And I want you to notice you still got this leftover short wave down here in the southeast. It's probably going to continue to bring some unsettled weather potential for the southeast for Sunday. I just don't think the severe weather threat will be that big of a deal for Sunday for these areas. But you kind of get this off your screen and you get this back moving again. I want you to watch as this blue area begins to shift further to the east in general. All right, so we're getting into Monday morning. All right, 12Z Monday. See up here, May the 20th. 12Z Monday stands for Monday morning. And then we take it to the most prime time of the day, 21Z, which is Monday afternoon. Okay, so at this point, the severe weather threat area is about in the same area, right? We go back and look at day 4, same area, right? This is for Monday. It just is kind of diagonal. It's a little bit different. So we look at this as far as the 500 millibar chart, and still it looks kind of weird, right? It's right here in this region now, but you see this blue area is a little bit closer. So you're starting to get an even better what we call mid-level flow because of this troughing and the shortwave energy approaching this area. So you're starting to get some flow right over this region, and then you already have higher surface moisture building into this region also. So typically where your overlapping best ingredients is kinematic wise, which is your wind energy, and then thermodynamic wise, which is your surface moisture, your Cape levels, your storm fuel, and surface temperatures and all kinds of other things, lapse rates, things like that. Where's your best overlapping ingredients? That's where your highest confidence level for severe weather is going to be. So because of this trough that's kind of doing its thing out here, this is providing ingredients for severe weather right in this region. But I still think this is kind of driven off that short wave kind of in place. I'm telling you, Sunday's tricky. Sunday's hard enough to explain. Monday's hard too. When we get into Tuesday, that's much more easier to explain. But, I think that I'll be able to explain this a lot better for you folks as we get a little bit closer. There's just a lot of little features that you can't really see on this map very well that's there for sure. So you get this back on off your screen. In general, I want you to think about it like this. If you're really interested in understanding and learning, this area in blue is the main driver and the factor in the driving a more active pattern across the central sections of the U.S. Lower pressure right here, ingredients building in, and just basically what we call a southwesterly flow in response to this upper trough digging into the western U.S. But watch as we get into Tuesday. This entire trough goes positively tilted, which if you just looked at it previously, it was kind of like this, right? To a more vertical tilt, okay? We call this a neutral tilt. It's tilting just like that for the most part. Okay, this tells me that this is strengthening at this point. All right, we get this back off this. We take it all the way into Tuesday afternoon. This almost starts to take a negative tilt, which means that the upper trough begins to tilt more so like this. Okay, it's not doing it much because this is just a weird trough. You got a little impulsive energy up here, down here. So there's a lot going on here. Okay, but as we are getting into Tuesday afternoon, much simpler to understand, much easier to understand. Let's just use that word since I can't use the other word very well. But much easier to understand here. This huge upper trough is basically yanking up a mid-level flow out the southwest right here into this region. You see the white area between the orange area and the blue area. That is where all your energy is going. So you got impulses of energy, surface low, wherever it's going to be, riding into this region. You most likely will have that surface low right probably into here somewhere. That's going to drive the lift for strong to severe storms up into areas of the Midwest. So one thing this is also doing, which is what I'm about to show you, is because you have this, let's just say southerly flow, right? These surface low features are going to actually help pull in winds out the south at the surface. What is this going to do? This is also going to yank in a ton of moisture, dew points, higher surface moisture into this region, all the way up into the Midwest. So you got that with that mid-level flow surging right overlapping that moist atmosphere. Well, you have a huge area that runs the risk of severe weather. Plenty of lift with the mid-level flow, and then just plenty of wind energy. So that's one way to explain it. The other way to explain it is the actual ingredients on play. And this is dew points. And if you look right here, and I don't show this much, I need to show it more because it does a better job here of showing everything. But you see these little weird little squiggly lines, what looks like an indentation off the line. Those are wind barbs. So, if you look really closely here and you see this wind barb with a little, let's find a good example of this. Like look down here. Man, I'm all over the place. Look at this one right here. This one right here, kind of on the border of Oklahoma and Kansas here in southeast Kansas. See how it goes down and then it kind of points this way? That where that flag is on that wind barb, that's telling us where the winds are direction the winds are coming out of. So the winds are coming out of the south here. And it makes sense, right? Because you have energy right here pulling in a lot of low-level moisture into the plains. So you kind of keep this going and you go into Sunday afternoon. Come on. Sunday afternoon, there we go. And there's some sort of energy right in here. All right, and see how it's yanking in this favorable moisture at the surface. You got dew points into the 60s, well, all the way into Nebraska. A little bit of that dry line setup ongoing right here. And just basically, you see these wind barbs kind of shooting out the south. And then you see these wind barbs over here. You got to look really closely. They're coming out more so the west. That is where your dry line setup is. Okay. All right, guys, I had to stop the video and see what was up with my little girl. I'm sure y'all heard her in the background yelling daddy. If not, I'm very surprised you didn't. But you can see the wind barb shooting out the south. This is bringing in a lot of low-level moisture all the way pretty far north into the plains. There's a dry line setting up, kind of separating the direction of two different, wind directions here. So it really shows what's going on pretty well. Now, you keep on going here. We get into Monday afternoon of next week. And we take it all the way just to about midday Monday. You can see now there's an all-out surface low right in here because if you look really closely, the wind barbs are kind of going in a circular motion right into here. This is yanking in ripe moisture into this region. We go on and take it to about Monday afternoon. It looks like you almost have a mini triple point being met right here. So you have even more moisture, higher in moisture, getting pushed. It was already pushed this far north on Sunday, but it's more just compact moisture, more widespread moist air in a much more broad area all the way. It's all the way up here into the upper Midwest because of the leftover energy from Sunday surging all the way into like the western sections of the Great Lakes area. So Monday afternoon, surface low right in here based off the European model. This is bringing in that low-level moisture needed for severe weather. And then we go into Tuesday morning. Another surface low will probably fly across the region. And then this is really going to yank in. Looks like there's some sort of... The surface low is going to be somewhere in here. And this is going to pull... You see the wind barbs down here in Texas shooting out the south or pointing to the south? You got a southerly flow bringing in rich Gulf of Mexico tropical air mass all the way across areas of like the eastern plains into the Midwest. And you got a ripe atmosphere as far as moisture wise all the way into the upper Midwest, the Midwestern states here. So yeah, and you take it all the way into Wednesday also. It gets a lot more complex as it looks like you just get an all-out cyclone that develops across the Great Lakes region. But you most likely are going to have a just troughing setting up over the middle of the country. This is going to still be pulling up that very moist air Wednesday afternoon of next week. And you're probably going to get severe weather again somewhere across the southern plains, maybe Ohio Valley. But it gets a lot more fuzzy as we get into midway next week. Okay, so what about that mid-level flow, right? Well, you look at Sunday afternoon. Remember how I was telling you it was a little complex? Well, it is because you have this mid-level flow right in here generated off that little weak short wave in like the central and southern Rockies, right? Just You see these more purple and almost pinkish areas right here. That's a mid-level flow, 18,000 feet up in the air. Winds are going about 40, pockets of 35 to 45 knots, maybe 50 knots in areas. This will be just enough lift in the atmosphere to run a risk of strong to severe storms ongoing here across the Central Plains. But you see this main belt right here of mid-level flow, this flow going on here. That is really what's associated with the actual trough digging into the western U.S. And we keep this going and we take it all the way into Monday. And it's kind of the same similar deal. But you're getting into Monday afternoon and it looks like you got the merging of this mid-level flow. Okay, just turning into one bona fide flow out there, southwesternly flow. But Monday's going to be a kind of a weird event. Where's your best lifting going to be over your best thermodynamics? It's going to be somewhere over the plains. Okay, but then it gets a lot more easier to read on this map as we get into a Tuesday afternoon. I mean, it's about as easy to look at as this. You see this huge area of winds in the mid-levels of the atmosphere approaching 70, 75, 80 knots across areas of the plains into the Midwestern states. So what this is you're looking at here is a ton of flow in the atmosphere over the middle of the country. This is riding over that rich, ripe moisture at the surface that we just talked about for a few minutes, right? So this is your overlapping ingredients, your overlapping kinematics, your wind flow aloft, and then your thermodynamics, your surface moisture, surface cape, all those things. And, you know, you get into Wednesday, you're going to have a severe weather threat also. I mean, look at all this flow over a good portion of the country. So, and then, you know, you kind of go back to the thermodynamics, which is your cape levels. You're just going to have day after day after day. As long as you have a moisture return over the country, you're going to have storm fuel. It's just, are you going to have the lift in the atmosphere that we just showed you? That 500 millibar wind flow, which is an excellent thing to look at as far as, is there enough oomph in the atmosphere for thunderstorm development? You look at Sunday afternoon, tons of energy in the atmosphere in this region, right? Cape values, I mean, don't focus too much on the actual numbers, but well over into the thousands. And then we look into Monday, another day of higher in Cape levels across the plains and central plains. I mean, even got some, I think we could have some strong to severe storms Monday afternoon across the Great Lakes region from the leftover energy from Sunday. And then, of course, I really do think Tuesday is going to be the big day. I think that's where you'll have your best high-end overlapping ingredients right in here. You see all these cape in the atmosphere stretching from Texas all the way into the Midwest. So we got a lot to figure out about this. I think next week's going to be very active. I think we could have some higher-end days. And I'm not saying a high risk, but I mean, I could see some enhanced risk days and even some moderate risk days, especially for Tuesday. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful start to your weekend.